You're listening to the CyberWire Network, powered by N2K.
We've all been there. You realize your business needs to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Well, it's easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post noticed. Indeed's sponsored jobs helps you stand out and hire fast. Your post jumps to the top of search results so the right candidates see it first. And it works. Sponsored jobs on Indeed get 45% more applications than non-sponsored ones. One of the things I love about Indeed is how fast it makes hiring. And yes, we do actually use Indeed for hiring here at N2K CyberWire. Many of my colleagues here came to us through Indeed. Plus, with sponsored jobs, there are no subscriptions, no long-term contracts. You only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Oh, in the minute or so that I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners to this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/cyberwire. Just go to Indeed.com/cyberwire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/cyberwire. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. A new executive order targets states' AI regulations, while the White House shifts course on an NSA deputy director pick. The UK fines LastPass over inadequate security measures. Researchers warn of active attacks against Gladinet CentreStack instances. OpenAI outlines future cybersecurity plans. MITRE ranks the top 25 vulnerabilities of 2025. CISA orders U.S. federal agencies to urgently patch a critical GeoServer vulnerability. An anti-piracy coalition shuts down one of India's most popular illegal streaming services. Our guest is Mark Lance, Vice President for DFIR and Threat Intelligence at GuidePoint Security, unpacking Purple Team tabletop exercises and preparing for AI-generated attacks. And hackers set their sights on DNA. It's Friday, December 12th, 2025. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is your CyberWire Intel Briefing. Thanks for joining us here today. Happy Friday. It is great, as always, to have you with us. President Donald Trump signed an executive order aimed at preventing U.S. states from creating their own artificial intelligence regulations, arguing that a fragmented regulatory landscape could hinder innovation and weaken America's ability to compete with China. Trump said requiring companies to navigate approvals in all 50 states would discourage investment and slow development. The order directs the Attorney General to form a task force to challenge state AI laws and instructs the Commerce Department to identify regulations deemed problematic. It also threatens to withhold certain federal funds, including broadband grants, from states that enact AI rules. The move comes amid bipartisan calls in Congress and pressure from civil liberties and consumer groups for stronger AI oversight. Several states, including California, Colorado, Utah, and Texas, have already passed AI laws focused on data limits, transparency, and discrimination risks. Supporters say such measures address real harms, while the administration argues only the most burdensome regulations should be targeted, leaving room for protections like child safety. Elsewhere, the Trump administration has reversed its decision on who will serve as deputy director of the National Security Agency, withdrawing its earlier pick amid internal opposition and pressure from far-right conservatives. Joe Franciscan, announced in August for the number 2 role, was recently informed he would no longer be appointed, according to multiple sources. Franciscan, a former NSA analyst and National Security Council official, never began the job and faced criticism from conservative activists, as well as resistance within the administration. He has since declined alternative NSA roles and moved to the private sector. The White House now plans to name Tim Kosiba, a former senior NSA and FBI official, to the position. Kosiba reportedly has backing from Trump allies and recently completed a polygraph at NSA headquarters. The change adds to ongoing leadership instability at the NSA, which remains without a Senate-confirmed director and faces additional senior departures in the coming weeks. The UK Information Commissioner's Office has fined LastPass about $1.6 million over a 2022 data breach that affected roughly 1.6 million UK users. Regulators concluded that LastPass failed to implement sufficiently robust technical and security measures, allowing a hacker to gain unauthorized access to a backup database tied to a third-party cloud storage service. While there is no evidence that customer passwords were decrypted, the ICO said the company nonetheless failed users who trusted it to protect sensitive information. LastPass, which serves more than 20 million customers and 100,000 businesses globally, remains a recommended security tool despite the incident. Industry experts described the fine as a watershed moment, highlighting that modern breaches often stem from identity compromise, governance failures, and supplier risk, rather than weak passwords alone. Huntress is warning of active attacks against Gladinet CentreStack instances, where attackers exploit a newly identified cryptography flaw to steal machine keys and gain remote code execution. The issue stems from CentreStack reusing static cryptographic strings, allowing attackers to access the web.config file, forge trusted requests, and abuse ASPX view state deserialization. Huntress has observed 9 impacted organizations across multiple sectors. No CVE has been assigned. Gladinet has fixed issues, and organizations are urged to update immediately and review indicators of compromise. OpenAI has outlined plans to treat all future AI models as having potentially high cybersecurity capabilities, acknowledging they could both aid defenders and be misused by attackers. Under its preparedness framework, such models might automate vulnerability discovery or cyber operations, prompting a defense-in-depth approach. Rather than limiting access or knowledge, OpenAI plans to rely on targeted training, red teaming, and system-wide monitoring to curb abuse. Models are designed to refuse or safely respond to malicious requests, with suspicious activity blocked, downgraded, or escalated for enforcement. OpenAI also plans a trusted access program offering enhanced capabilities to qualified cybersecurity defenders and a frontier risk council of experts. While OpenAI cites improving model performance as evidence of advancing capabilities, outside analysts caution against overstating current AI-driven threats. MITRE has published their 2025 CWE Top 25, ranking the past year's vulnerabilities. Cross-site scripting was the most dangerous software weakness, followed by SQL injection and cross-site request forgery. Missing authorization climbed to 4th, while out-of-bounds write placed 5th. The list adds 6 new entries, including multiple buffer overflow flaws and access control weaknesses, while several issues dropped off due to methodology changes. CISA says the updated list is designed to help reduce vulnerabilities and costs. Agencies urge developers and security teams to use it to guide secure-by-design practices, testing, and vendor evaluations. CISA has ordered U.S. federal agencies to urgently patch a critical GeoServer vulnerability that's being actively exploited in the wild. The flaw is an unauthenticated XML external entity or XXE vulnerability affecting multiple GeoServer versions. By abusing weak XML input handling in a specific getMap endpoint, the attackers can retrieve arbitrary files, trigger denial of service conditions, access sensitive data, or enable server-side request forgery. CISA has added the flaw to its known exploited vulnerabilities catalog and directed federal civilian executive branch agencies to remediate by January 1st. While the mandate applies only to federal agencies, CISA strongly urges all organizations running GeoServer to patch immediately, noting widespread exposure and active exploitation. An anti-piracy coalition has shut down Mark V cinemas, one of India's most popular illegal streaming services, cutting off access to free movies and TV shows used by millions. The operation was led by the Alliance for Creativity and Entertainment, or ACE, backed by more than 50 major studios and networks, including Disney, Netflix, and Warner Brothers. ACE identified the operator in Bihar, India, who agreed to cease operations and transfer 25 related domains, now redirected to a legal streaming portal. The coalition also dismantled a file cloning tool widely used in India and Indonesia to distribute pirated content via cloud storage. ACE says the takedown underscores its continued collaboration with global law enforcement to disrupt large-scale piracy networks. Coming up after the break, my conversation with Mark Lance from GuidePoint Security. We're discussing Purple Team tabletop exercises to prepare for AI-generated attacks. And hackers set their sights on DNA. Stay with us. Most environments trust far more than they should, and attackers know it. ThreatLocker solves that by enforcing default deny at the point of execution. With ThreatLocker Allow listing, you stop unknown executables cold. With ring fencing, you control how trusted applications behave. And with ThreatLocker DAC, Defense Against Configurations, you get real assurance that your environment is free of misconfigurations and clear visibility into whether you meet compliance standards. ThreatLocker is the simplest way to enforce zero-trust principles without the operational pain. It's powerful protection that gives CISOs real visibility, real control, and real peace of mind. ThreatLocker makes zero-trust attainable, even for small security teams. See why thousands of organizations choose ThreatLocker to minimize alert fatigue, stop ransomware at the source, and regain control over their environments. Schedule your demo at threatlocker.com/N2K today. AI is transforming every industry, but it's also creating new risks that traditional frameworks can't keep up with. Assessments today are fragmented, overlapping, and often specific to industries, geographies, or regulations. That's why Black Kite created the BKGA3 AI Assessment Framework to give cybersecurity and risk teams a unified, evolving standard for measuring AI risk across their own organizations and their vendors' AI use. It's global, research-driven, built to evolve with the threat landscape, and free to use. Because Black Kite is committed to strengthening the entire cybersecurity community. Learn more at blackkite.com. Mark Lance is Vice President for DFIR and Threat Intelligence with GuidePoint Security. I recently sat down with him to discuss Purple Team tabletop exercises to help prepare for AI-generated attacks.
Yeah, we've seen this to be a huge growth area over the last couple years where more and more people are seeing the benefits and starting to perform tabletop exercises. We think a lot of that is driven internally from management teams, even technical teams trying to drive awareness and visibility upwards, but also board directives. Could be insurance and compliance requirements are driving people to do these tabletops. In general, we recommend that a tabletop is performed at least once a year across your senior leadership team, and then additionally a separate one across your technical or maybe management teams.
Well, for folks who've never been part of one, can you describe it for us? What typically goes into a tabletop exercise?
A tabletop is going to be a hypothetical incident where you are taking and leveraging this incident to educate the participants in the audience on the different types of things that could transpire during an incident. And while it's also used for the opportunity for education, it's also about enablement, making sure that people know how to leverage their existing incident response plans, knowing their roles and responsibilities during those incidents, and what are those key decision points that could occur. But all in all, the idea is to take this hypothetical incident that's applicable to you and your organization and get people to understand how they would react by executing that with an audience and having them make the decisions on what steps they would take based upon different injects and things that would happen during that incident process.
Well, of course, the hot topic these days is AI, and how has that changed the way people are framing their tabletops these days?
AI, similar to any other threat, just needs to be accounted for when putting together these hypothetical incidents or these tabletop exercises. Different organizations have different types of threats that they should be aware of and conscious of that are the most relevant to them and their organization and their business. And AI is one of the things that obviously we're very conscientious about because we know that cyber criminals and threat actors are leveraging AI and certain technologies in different ways. And so accounting for those during these tabletops, whether that is more efficient, phishing attempts, whether it is, custom code created, whether it's accessing AI infrastructure that you're leveraging and using within your own environment. Those are all things that should be or could be accounted for when you're creating and developing these unique scenarios to test somebody's, ability to respond to them.
What's your advice for organizations figuring out what the cadence should be for them? How often they should do this?
I think the cadence for these tabletop exercises and crisis simulations is contingent upon an organization's maturity. A lot of businesses, this could be the very first time they're doing it, and maybe they don't have an existing incident response plan, and so they're leveraging this as an opportunity to vet out who could be doing what during an incident and who's going to be responsible so they can then go develop that incident response plan because they don't have that level of sophistication yet. Now, there are other organizations that might have existing incident response plan, playbooks, specific run books, and it's more of an opportunity to test those out and you can perform them more frequently because you have the established plans and you're just seeing how people would respond to certain types of incidents. And so I think the level of maturity an organization has will determine, what the purpose and intent behind it is. But I also think what's very important is making sure that you're targeting specific audiences based on the type of conversation that's occurring and the talk track for the tabletop itself.
Well, related to that, how do you go about deciding who should be included in the exercises?
It really varies upon the audience and the intent behind the tabletop and the exercise. For a technical tabletop, as an example, for a technical tabletop, it could be more around how are things identified? How did you identify a certain type of incident or an incident has occurred in your environment? How are you then tracking that incident? How are you escalating it? How are you sharing information internally about that? Who's determining the severity and escalations and when that should go up to senior leadership? Now, the audience for more of a senior leadership or, executive tabletop is going to be less about the intricacies involved with the incident itself and going to be more about decisions and business related decisions that need to be made. You know, you are going to get high level details about the incident, not necessarily having to know the intricacy and technical details involved in how it's tracked, but instead, who's going to be communicating with your cyber insurance carrier? Are we going to engage external counsel? Is there necessity to shut down certain areas of the business? Who's drafting internal and external notifications and letting people know that we are being potentially impacted by an incident? And when should those occur? And so really the audience can drive the intent, but the intent can also drive the audience. But realistically, we do see we're breaking apart those sessions into different audiences. Audience specific to their role is very important.
Mark, I know as part of your role there at GuidePoint, you help organizations run their tabletop exercises. Can you give us a kind of a peek into that world? I'm specifically curious, like, do you find you have to bring some people along? Or I guess I'm asking, are some folks skeptical when they walk into that room that they're not sure what they're getting into, or is this the best use of my time?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of clients who might not necessarily know what they're getting into, which again, depending upon the intent of the exercise, in most circumstances, we actually recommend that clients aren't prepared with knowing the full incident scenario, because in a real incident situation, you're not going to know everything about the incident upfront. You're going to be dealing with it reactively versus, having all of the details and able to know that, well, eventually this is going to happen. Instead, information gets trickled in during a real incident response effort. And so we try to simulate what a real incident would be like. And a lot of that is having core preparation with policies and processes, and then being able to navigate those based on the variables and the details that are shared with you as part of the incident. So realistically, when we're going to develop these things, it's one, who's the audience? Two, what is the intent behind the tabletop? Is it to test plans? Is it for educational purposes to teach people about different types of threats? Is it enablement for the team to further understand their roles and responsibilities? And then developing a scenario that's going to test different areas of the business and help them establish some muscle memory. And then also to educate them on, okay, well, here where there were deficiencies in your process, and you need to potentially make improvements to be more effective in the future if this was a real scenario.
And what's it like after the fact? Is this a revelation for some of the people to have this real world view of the possibilities?
It is. It's a lot of our clients walk away from these things saying, holy crap, are these the kinds of things that could really happen to us and that we need to be thinking about? And the answer is generally yes. The intent isn't to necessarily scare people, but it is to bring awareness to them, so that they know the details about the true impacts of potential incidents to their business and their organization.
What are your recommendations for folks who want to go down this path, who maybe haven't done this before? What's a good place to get started?
I think understanding your level of maturity, one, is the first piece. Is, have you done these types of things in the past? If you haven't, I think in general everybody should be performing tabletop exercises. They should be, actively, having these simulations for different target audiences, periodically. Two, do we have the capability to potentially try to do this or want to try to do this internally ourselves? Or do we want to bring in outside help with the expertise and experience of knowing what some of the pitfalls or speed bumps might be? We do see where a lot of people will, attempt to perform these, and that's great. At least they're trying, but then they do realize sometimes there is some outside experience that can be brought to the table. And so looking for others and consulting them on the opportunity for that experience in those services. And then I think that, three is just making sure that you are leveraging best practices like doing target and specific audiences, building custom scenarios that are going to be specific to your environment, but also making sure that they're relevant and things that could really happen. Because a lot of times you'll lose the audience and people will say, oh, that couldn't really happen to us. So making sure that they are viable and real things that could potentially impact your specific environment and infrastructure. And then the last piece is making sure that you're taking the lessons learned from that and applying them. These are learning opportunities. They're not necessarily a test, but they're an opportunity to say, hey, we were extremely efficient here, and here are things we did very well, but maybe we're missing some of these policies or processes here. Here's where there was some confusion and people didn't know who should be handling certain actions or activities. We also weren't sure who our third parties are, or we weren't tracking that information. So making sure that you're leveraging the lessons learned from that so that you can grow and be more efficient and effective in the following exercises.
That's Mark Lance from GuidePoint Security.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
And finally, cybersecurity has officially crossed the Rubicon, and it did so carrying a pipette. Researchers have shown that malware no longer needs phishing emails or poisoned downloads. It can hitch a ride inside synthetic DNA. In a University of Washington demonstration, carefully crafted DNA sequences were shown to trigger exploits when processed by sequencing software, turning lab workflows into attack paths. Once sequenced, biological data moves through cloud platforms and custom code, where hidden instructions could corrupt data or enable remote access. For sectors like genomics, biotech, healthcare, and agriculture, this raises uncomfortable questions about data integrity, intellectual property, and national biosecurity. Traditional controls barely notice the threat because DNA looks like biology, not malware. The takeaway is simple and unsettling. Genomic pipelines are now part of the attack surface. The genome is no longer just life's blueprint, it is executable input. And yes, that means your lab bench just joined the threat model. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go watch the latest episode of Pluribus. And that's the CyberWire. Be sure to check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. Be sure to check out this weekend's Research Saturday and my conversation with Daniel Schwabe, Domain Tools Head of Investigations and CISO. We're sharing their work inside the Great Firewall. That's Research Saturday. Check it out. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to cyberwire@n2k.com. N2K's senior producer is Alice Carruth. Our CyberWire producer is Liz Stokes. We're mixed by Trey Hester with original music by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Peter Kilpie is our publisher, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here next week.